What's your major? What career path are you on? It's a tough question to answer. Sad truth is, most of you are going to get it wrong. Over 70% of the people who finish with a 4-year degree in the United States do not use that degree in their professional life. So why do we go through so much grief trying to figure it out? Why do we state a major at all? Why do we take classes that are in our concentration if our concentration is never going to really matter when we step out the back door of the university? And why do we go through so much anxiety, so much expense to get into college, the right college, to choose the right major, and then to spend all the money and go into debt, our families, ourselves, just to end up in a place where did it really matter that much? So many of the biggest titans in industry will tell you that a college degree has less and less value now than it ever did before, in many ways. That added on to all of the energy you're going to put into doing this makes you really want to understand the right way to approach the question. And that's what I want to explore with you, because I was in this same situation just a few years ago. My daughters were approaching college age, and I had been to college and I had changed my major, and I wanted to make sure that whatever they decided to study, that they were going to get the full benefit out of that experience. That's it. I love my daughters. I want the best for them. I want to support them in any way we can. And I wanted to just assure that they were the 30%. And not just the 30% that end up using their degree. It's way more important than that. And this is really the crux of what this video is about. We don't just want to pass. You know, getting a passing grade is a big so what in life, right? We want to live life at a higher level. I don't know about you, but for me, it's all about the juice. I want to be at the top 10% of every experience I decide to step into. That's where I live my life. That's ultimately what this is about. How can we live our lives at a really high level? And where does that start? So choosing your major, choosing your career path, that's going to be part of the equation for sure. But the problem is that we're treating that as a short-term question to answer instead of looking further down the road as to what are the consequences of that choice. And successful people who end up consistently successful don't play it that way. They look ahead. They anticipate what's going to be successful not just today based on this decision, but based on in the future. Will I still look at this as a successful choice for me? And that's really what I want to deconstruct with you. When I went to college, I took 7.5 years to get through college. And the irony is that I never thought I was going to college. I lived in Texas my teenage years, and in a small town, and most of the people that I knew were not going to college, did not go to college, and that was my reference point. So I was just going to get a job. I thought I was going to get a good job. I was going to become a mechanical draftsman. I was taking classes in high school, really loved it. That's what I was going to do. My senior year, I ended up moving to California, and I didn't know a soul who wasn't going to college. It couldn't have been a more different world and mindset about education and the value of that. And I was moving in with my dad, and my dad had 2 bachelor's degrees and a master's degree and was all about education and the value of that. So that was the world I stepped into when I was 16, 17 years old. And I said, okay. So I decided to go to junior college, get a degree in mechanical drafting. I did that. I finished high school early because I couldn't wait to get out. I went to junior college. I got my degree, and when I was finishing my last semester, my dad said, you know, I'm working for a company right now that has mechanical draftsmen, and we should do some math, because I was doing the math and I don't think you're going to be able to make a living on what mechanical draftsmen make, and they're becoming obsolete. There's a thing called CAD, computer-aided drafting, that's replacing hand drawing, which is what I was learning to do. So I said, well, what do you think? I respect my dad. He knows a lot about a lot. And so he said, well, there's mechanical drafting that's kind of related. And he says, there's mechanical engineering, and mechanical engineers always have a job. And I said, well, I come from a place in my mind, I'm thinking I always want to have a job. And he says they make a good living, and it's a pretty secure choice. And I said, okay, let's do that. I applied to mechanical engineering program at Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo and in Pomona in California, and I got accepted. I spent all of about 15-20 minutes in a car ride across town deciding what to major in. And I'm bringing up this story because that sounds ridiculous when I think about it in the past, but it's how a lot of us, it's about how much thought goes into it. I've asked dozens and dozens of people how they chose their major, and most of them aren't any better than what I just told you. And that's why, ultimately, that was not right for me. Within 2 years of beating my head against the wall and doing things that never resonated with me, and telling myself, just gut it out, you can do this, you're smart, and that wasn't enough, it was freaking miserable for me, I figured out I needed to find something different. I didn't know what, I just knew it had to be different. And I'm telling you this story because I know a lot of you are going to end up in this place if you're not already there. And it's because the criteria for choosing the major is all wrong. It's got little to do with who you are as a human being and what really matters and works for you. And it has everything to do with other people's criteria. I was using my dad's criteria. I was a 17-year-old kid. I wasn't a dad supporting 3 kids and a mortgage and all the things that go with that. He should care about certainty and making sure he always had a job. I was a young person with my whole future ahead of me. That shouldn't have been my criteria. And because I was choosing from that place, that's why it failed. I look back at it now and it's so predictable. So what I want to explore with you is, what's the right criteria? Why aren't we using criteria that actually works? How did those 30% who end up using it professionally, what did they do differently than the ones that failed at this? What did they understand that the rest of us didn't understand? What did they tap into? I was fortunate enough to end up changing my major to something, I took a couple of courses and loved them. That was a sign, right? There was some proof that there was something there resonating with me. And so I chased that, and thank goodness I found that, and I love it. I still practice landscape architecture and enjoy it every day. But it feeds other needs, and it supports who I naturally am. And that's really what we want to uncover for you, is who are you naturally? If you're just doing what you want to do, the way you want to do it, and it's lighting you up, what is that? What does that look like? What are the ingredients that make that up for you? We want to uncover that. And the thing is that very few people understand the framework to uncover that. That's just it. I realize I look around, I don't see anybody talking about it. So I'm going to talk about it. That is really what this video series is about. It's about, hey, if you really want to predict an amazing life, a great experience that lights you up most of the time, How would you do that? So that's what we're going to look at. So I want to take you through a little exercise. I want you to think about some of your favorite movies. Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Rocky, Star Wars, Gladiator. These movies all have something in common. It's called the hero's journey. And it's a formula that's created by Joseph Campbell. And it's used in storytelling all the time. And the reason they use that formula is because it's predictably successful. It hooks what's innately human in us in terms of connecting with characters, vesting in them, rooting against them. It's used over and over. The Terminator movies, all of these movies where there's a good guy and a bad guy, where the good guy goes through all kinds of hell, comes out the other end, and he's victorious, and everybody goes home happy. Okay? So there's a formula there that predictably makes us feel and go through a predictable experience and end up at the end the way we want it. There's a formula for life like that. That's what we're going to explore now. And it's essentially very personal for each one of us, but there is one. I know because I know mine. And I apply it to everything important in my life consistently, and because of that, I have an amazing life. I live life at a 9 to a 10 all the time. It doesn't mean that crap doesn't happen that I don't like. That's not what I'm saying. But how you deal with the crap, or all the good and the bad in life, and the meaning you give it, and the impact it has on how you're feeling and the experience you're having, that's what's important. Because at the end of the day, life is just this movie that's an experience. You feel this way, you feel that way, and you're reacting all the time to all these different things that are going on and how you feel about them, the meaning you give it. But it still is a reaction to who you are. Does this thing that's happening align with me? Is it working against me? Is it working for me? And when you get choices such as, what's my career path going to be? What college do I choose? You want to make sure that before you make that choice, you know what that alignment should look like. That's what you want to know. This is your recipe for success. This is your formula for what works for you. And if you put that sauce on anything major that you're doing, you're going to enjoy it because it's going to predict the alignment and the experience and how you feel about it, because all the ingredients that you care about and value most are going to be there. That's the thing. It's like somebody has a golden ticket they handed me. When I worked this one out for myself, everything shifted. I enjoyed my life before. I wouldn't say otherwise. I had a really good life already before I realized this stuff. But I live at a higher plane now. I live in Santa Barbara, California, 300 miles from where I run my business. I thought I'd retire here one day. I wondered why I should wait till I retire when I really want to live here and experience this place. And was there a way I could pull that off and also keep working? And the answer is, yeah, I worked it out. So now the experience, I can go walk on the beach in the morning with my wife before I start my work day. You know, it's amazing. So the point is, I figured out what mattered most to me consistently and how to put that and keep it in my life and keep it close to all the experiences I'm having. And we all have a different answer there. This isn't about accruing stuff. This is about an experience. And the experience is different no matter what you're doing. You can still really be getting a lot of it. You can be being filled up, fulfilled. And that's really the goal here, is to live a fulfilled life. So let's get into it. What are the things that make up that secret sauce for each one of us. What is the recipe composed of? So the core driver of behavior for us, and what's running us from the back, so to speak, are needs. These are psychological needs, but here's the first one. The example is certainty, safety, security. All words for the same idea. This is very primal. For us to survive, we need to be safe and secure. So first things first, I need to be alive. I need to take care of business, make sure I'm secure. When we're parents, that becomes a much higher one. When we're older, we get more worried about our own safety and security because we're more susceptible to health issues and things like that. So safety and security is a big one. If you see somebody, young or old, that is making choices that don't seem to be around pleasure but more about security, that means that's a pretty high one for them. So a great example is a government employee that works for the IRS, okay? Now, I know that's an extreme example, but it's pretty easy to understand that you don't take that job because you enjoy putting people on the spot and making them explain how they didn't pay certain taxes, okay? Why would somebody take that job? And there's a lot of jobs like that, right? Why a garbage man? Why all these different things? They're doing it because they're trying to pay their bills. They're trying to put food on the table. They're putting a roof over their head. That's basic security and safety. They're trying to take care of that one right there at the top. And so if you see somebody who behaves that way and is making those types of choices, that's a big symptom of somebody who values it highly. It's not good or bad, by the way. None of these are. But it tells you in a predictable way what's likely to happen in a given circumstance. If you say, hey, next week we're all flying to Vegas, I want you to come, and I'm paying for the whole trip. All you got to do is show up. And you know that if you say yes to that, you'll probably lose your job. You have to work, not an option for you. Or if you're in college and it's just like, oh no, I have finals next week. I'm telling you, man, we're going to stay at a great place and we're going to see these shows and it's going to be amazing. Some people will go, How can that one person say, yep, I'm in, and this other person's like, that's crazy, I can't do that, I'll lose too much. The person who values certainty more highly says, no, thank you, and the other one says, sure, why not? I'll deal with the problems later, okay? That person who says, I'm in, values adventure. So the second need, I'll just put it there, is variety, novelty, and adventure, okay? And that one is huge for me. If you see people who are always doing new things, that's a sign. That means they value that one very highly, okay? Somebody who's an artist. If I'm an actor, a musician, or anything like that, I know that I won't have financial security. It's a given, which means financial certainty is low for me. And so when you see that kind of spread between those choices, that's already telling you where this position's out for that person. And think about it. We don't think about somebody who works for the government in the same breath as somebody who's a rock star or an actor, right? We see them as very different people. Why is that? They're making different choices because their drivers are different, okay? So that's number 2. Number 3 is love and connection. Love and connection is massive. It's number 1 for a lot of people. It's number 1 for me. I love people. I love connecting with people. It's why one of the reasons I do this. The way I've set up my business, I was saying how I love my life. I design my business to meet my needs. I see 40 to 50 clients a year. I do probably 200 meetings a year. I get variety and I get connection. Those are my 2 highest priority or needs. So I design them into my business so that I'm high all the time getting my needs met by doing what I love to do, and I'm helping other people with it. So that's an example of connection. But also, if you say a more common example would be, I spend a lot of time with my family, my best friend, my partner in life, whatever that is, and that's my highest priority. That's a high need for love and connection. Another one is relevance or self-importance or I matter. Okay, and this is a big one in our culture these days. This is where I want to feel important, like I matter to the world. And so here's a great example of why you're addicted to your phone. When you get a like by a posting on Instagram, Facebook, whatever social media you're on, that's the world or somebody in the world saying, I like what you just put out there. You just became more relevant. That's why it's addictive. They know that when they design that software. Everything's made to make you feel connected to other people and make you feel like you matter to other people. That's why Facebook blew up, because they understood these human needs and they feed them at a high level. Okay? Certainty. They're also delivering certainty because I can connect with people reliably all the time. All the time. So they're meeting 3 of the biggest needs for human beings on demand. That's why it's so addictive. That's why it's so profitable. Okay? The next one is self-expression. Young people, great examples are tattoos, piercings. I play an instrument. I paint, I draw. These are things I do for me. I'm not doing them for other people's attention. You can be also, but it's the part of you that says, I want to do this thing just because it feeds me and there's something about it I need to get out. That's self-expression. And then the last 2, to me, go together. They're growth and learning and contribution. And the way I heard Tony Robbins put it, which resonated with me to such a deep level, is that the more we grow and learn, the more we have to contribute to the greater good. That's what I'm doing right now. I've learned a lot about a lot because I'm just curious, but I love helping other people. I love sharing information. I've got 400 videos already on YouTube about plants and landscaping. I did that because I love to share information and I know that it can help other people, not because I need everybody to find out what I put on those videos. So contribution is where you're doing something for somebody beyond yourself. Growth is I'm curious and I want to learn and grow so I have more to give, or I'm able to do more in my life, whatever that is for you. So those are the 7 needs. So they're certainty / security, safety. They're variety and novelty and adventure. There's love and connection. There's self-expression. There's the need to feel like you matter, that you're relevant. And there's growth and contribution. The next thing to figure out is, what are your top 2 or 3? Those are your drivers. Those 2 or 3 are running a lot of behavior on you. And when you understand those, you can now predict how you're going to behave, but also how you're going to feel lit up when you behave that way. They meet a need for you. That's why these are called needs. Now, the thing is that on a deeper level, you start to find that they're not always the best things to be doing, or the way you express them or behave. Sometimes you can meet that need in a more constructive way. And that's another subject, but it's also a really important thing to discern, because sometimes you realize you're a control freak and it drives everybody around you nuts because you have a need for certainty. So what's a more constructive way to get that certainty and still meet the need, as an example? But again, to understand what's driving it helps you assess it and then do something about that. So those are our 7 needs. So let's talk about values, beliefs, and identity. These are the last core drivers of a lot of our decision making and behavior. So values, we're going to call these core values and towards and away from values. And the reason is because there's as much behavior, I'd say, from things we stay away from as there are that we move towards. So Americans value freedom. We value freedom of speech, freedom of choice, freedom. A lot of things that involve freedom. It's an idea that we value very highly. So that's an example of a core belief. A core value. And family values. Well, that's where you're saying things that are built in and around the family and the idea of what a good family is and a moral family is and these types of things, then you value those associated ideas. So that's an example of values. Towards values. Away from values are, an example is, I hate negativity. I don't like to be around it. I don't think it's good for us, and there's so much of it. It's a drag. So my away from value is negativity, okay? And violence, same thing. I feel like it's not good for us. I think to be around it, anyway, it's not good for me. And so my two towards away from values are negativity and violence, as an example. So what values do you have at a high level, top 2 or 3 of towards and away from, that you feel show up for you a lot? Very important to understand. These are all going to go on a scoreboard of sorts, because when you put all of these things together, your highest needs, your highest core values, your highest beliefs, and your highest identity traits, you're going to see what's running the show mostly. And when you have that as a reference point or a scorecard that you can quickly look at when you're trying to decide important things, you're going to have a very clear sense of predicting what works for you. That's going to be your recipe for understanding good choices for you. So back to our list. So beliefs. This is, again, I don't like to start with the negative, so I won't. So belief is a belief in God. That's the most obvious one, or a higher power. Okay, that's a very big one, the biggest one for a lot of people. And if you think about it, if that is one for you, you can understand how powerful that belief is in shaping behavior. There's a lot of things you're going to do, how you're going to behave, and there's a lot of things you're not going to do if you have a belief in a higher power, if you believe in heaven, if you believe in an afterlife, if you believe there's a hell, and you really believe that, then it's going to shape your behavior. The thing that most people don't think about is what we call limiting beliefs. Here's an example. When I was, 2001, I was making $60,000, $70,000 a year as a landscape architect. I might have said this in another story, but this is really critical. I had come to a place in my career where I believed that was about the top of what somebody with my background could expect to be making professionally. So guess what? Do you think I kept trying to get better and advance and grow more because I expected to be rewarded and increase my value so I'd make more in the marketplace and I could have a better standard of living for my family? No, I didn't. Why should I? My limiting belief said there was no point. How many things in our life do we not try because we've pre-decided or we believe there's no point? That's not going to work out. I'm not smart enough. I'm not talented enough. I'm not young enough. I'm not old enough. Whatever that is. These limiting beliefs are controlling so much behavior that's preventing you from having what you want or what you even think is possible. This is a massive one. This is what shifted everything in my life. I went from living at a consistent 8 out of 10 to a 9/10 most of the time. And the difference is I stopped believing that there was a limit to what was possible. Do I realistically think I can fly? No, I know that's a limit, but this was more about what was realistic. When we see that there's people achieving and doing the things that we'd like to do, but we tell ourselves a story about what's not possible because we don't think we could do that. That's a classic limiting belief. Those are the ones that prevent you from having the future and the life that you really believe and you wish you could have. And I'm here to tell you that one right there, that's the one to smash in the face. That will shift everything for you. The more you identify and crush those, the more your life starts to expand with possibilities. And the thing about a belief is this: it's something that you think is true with a high degree of certainty. Doesn't mean it is true. You think it's true. That's it. High degree of certainty. So what you do is you go in and you start chipping away at that. Tony Robbins is known for having people walk on fire at his seminar called Unleash the Power Within. The night I did that, I believed that a lot more was possible than I had believed before that. People think it's some, culty whatever. No, his thing is he understands that the minute you open your mind to possibilities, that you crush something that you believed was impossible, like walking on fire, the minute your mind says, and what else is possible? That's where you want to get to, however you get there. Be willing to try things that make you incredibly uncomfortable, that you don't think necessarily you can do. Test it, and you'll be amazed at what's possible. That's the whole point of this. This is to identify to you what's running your life, and then so you can then go in and adjust the stuff that's not serving you. Because ultimately, that's what self-improvement, self-growth, all that stuff is about. I've done a ton of it. And it gets a bad rap in some circles, but at the end of the day, if it opens up understandings of how to get the most out of a life, it's great. That's what this video is for. It's to help you see another way of thinking about a thing that hopefully will improve your experience in your life and open you up to bigger and brighter ideas and ways to think about your life and to experience it. So the last one is identity. Now, identity is I am not. These are clearly defined ideas about who you are and what you represent as a human being in your own mind. So a good example is when I was a kid in Texas growing up, there was this idea of what a good person was, a good man. A stand-up guy is how I learned it. And this was somebody who had integrity, always did the right thing, was considerate to other people, and was coming from a good place, whatever they were doing. That was an aspiration of mine from a young age. And to this day it is. But that's an idea of identity and identifying with certain characteristics. So here's some other examples that we all know. I'm a Christian. I'm a Muslim. I'm a Democrat. I'm a Republican. I'm an American. Think about how each one of those feels when you say it to yourself. Whichever one or whatever things you identify with strongly. Because again, we're trying to get at the strong drivers. Drivers are the best word for it, I think, because they are driving behavior, right? And so when something comes up, politics, If I'm a Democrat versus a Republican, I have a very different reaction to that. And it goes back to my identity as to who I am more deeply as a human being. Because there's ideas around what that means to be a Democrat or a Republican, a Christian or a Muslim, okay? So all you're trying to do is, again, what are the things that show up a lot in your life that reflect strong identity drivers, okay? And the nice thing is a lot of these are big ideas, you know, being an American, being a Christian, being a Republican or a Democrat. These are big ideas. They're pretty easy to connect with and associate with. But what's interesting too is if I say I'm a Christian, it's not just about Christianity. It's about our connection to God, let's say, or a bigger idea. There's more behind it, but it's actually kind of a nice way to consolidate or distill a lot of smaller ideas that seem to come together and be represented in this one bigger idea. Like to be an American, you know, we have all these stories and history behind what that means for us. And there's certain ones that we associate to much more than we do others, right? We don't even agree with some of them, but we really agree with others. So this is back to identity. This is always being formed. This is a work in progress till the day you die. But there's usually some pretty strong stuff, even in your late teens and early in your 20s, that's starting to go on for you. And you're still working on it. So to me, you have what's existing, and then there's the aspirational side. So don't need to beleaguer the point, but that's identity, and that's the idea behind it. And those, I would say, identify your top 3 identity things. So here's some other stuff, because I'm talking about big ones, but it's like, I am compassion. I am love. These are deeper ideas that aren't just about, you know, like I said, those earlier ones are actually consolidations, but what's the deeper thing you identify with? If I say I'm compassion, that means I care about other people, okay? Those are really the identity traits to zero in on. Okay, so that's identity, and that's the final one in the group. So we've got the needs, the beliefs, the values, and then your identity. Now, look, there's a lot of other things that drive us, but if you get these 4 figured out and your top 2 or 3 for each one, you can tell a lot about what's going on with you and what's predictably going to drive your behavior, what's predictably going to make you happy and totally lit up, and what's going to bother the heck out of you and prevent you from doing something. So if I try and go get a job or a career and I start pursuing a major and I'm working against all this stuff, 70% fail. What do you think's going on there, right? This is what this video is all about. This is about saying what's really going on here, okay? I just told you. You can take these ideas and workshop them on your own and really start to understand, okay, if I've got this framework for what makes me hum, I know a lot. And I know a hell of a lot more than most people do consciously anyway. Most of us are just reacting to what's going on in the moment. But the problem is, if you don't understand all these things in symphony with one another and realize that that's what's going on, because if you come in here and you say, hey, I need certainty right now, and then you say, yeah, but to grow, I've got to try this new thing, and the outcome is uncertain. You're in conflict, and this is what drives us all crazy. It feels like we're in conflict a lot of time because as much as we want this thing, there's something holding us back, right? How many times do you feel you want to do something that there's something saying, yep, that's good, I want that. And then you go, no. And there's all these other things going on in the background just reining you in. It's this stuff. So if you can understand it, you can go in and tweak it and push down and meet these other needs and maybe adjust your values and work on your beliefs and say to yourself, for the life I want to live and what I want it to represent when I get to the end of it, what work do I need to do on this stuff right now and ongoing to have that life? Because too many of us are too short-minded about this. We're sitting here and we can only see, especially in your teens and 20s, man, it's just like your horizon and what you can really conceptualize isn't that far down the road. But look at your parents, look at your grandparents, and look at the lives they've lived and ask yourself, well, if that's an example, how would I want that to look for me when I get to that age? Those are really important questions to answer, because then you can formulate a strategy starting now. And I guarantee you, if you start now in your teens and 20s, your likelihood of living that life is way more likely. I just had a close friend yesterday tell me how she did what a lot of people call a vision board. And a vision board is somebody imagining the future they want, the stuff they want, the experiences they want. And she said she looked back, she did it like 15 years ago, and almost everything on there has happened for her. She created a vision. That's what you need to do. But now you know what's driving you towards that vision, and you're in control of it the more you understand it. Now you're way more likely to hit these targets that you want to hit because you really know what's going on. It's not to say it's easy, and it's not to say conflict isn't happening all the time, but when you have clear priorities, you can work that out. That's the thing. That's empowerment. That's huge empowerment. You're going to be one of the 30% that finishes college, goes into a career, and frickin' loves it. Because you'll always have your reference point for what's going to work for you. If I'm going to do this thing, what's going to optimize it for me so I get the most out of it, and I'm living at a 9 and a 10 and fulfilled and full of joy and the love of life all the time. That's what I hope for you. That's what I have. I frickin' love it. I hope this so much for you. So at the beginning, I asked you, what's your major? And what career path are you on? Now I know you don't, I didn't really answer that for you on how to get it specifically. But what I did point out is that it starts with a vision for your life. A major, a college major, a career, it's just some of the things you will be doing and you will be experiencing in your life. But it's more about what kind of experience do you want to have? And choosing the right things will assure that you have a much better experience, because that is really what life is about. It's about living a life full of joy and fulfillment and well-being. And you can't have that if you're living somebody else's story or agenda. So you need to find out which one, what is right for you, what your recipe, what your formula is. And then you also need to, so here it is, broken down. Your next step is this. You should do a vision board or a story where you write down, like a little kid with no limits, everything you want to live and experience in your life. If you read that story and you're just like, whoa, I wish that was my life, that's the story you need to write. That's the story you need to envision. Get clear about it. The more clear you can be about the non-negotiables that you know, we call it a bucket list, but people wait till they're older till they even have one. All these things you know you want to have, do, experience in your life, you write them down. And you go back and you check those, and it's just like the next year, the next 5 years, the next 10 years, 30, 40, 50 years out. Put some of this stuff in all those things. Here's why. When you start to make a decision tomorrow or the next week, your reference is going to be, well, is that going to send me on that right trajectory towards those things I just wrote down that I know I want for my life? Does this support that outcome? That's why you need a reference every time you make an important decision to say, is that taking me in the right place? Because if it's pointing in the wrong direction, it's the wrong choice for you. Yeah? That's the thing. Get a clear direction, a clear outcome you want for your life, all the big stuff. And now you go back and do these exercises we outlined in the video. Now, I'm going to be doing online classes and some other things that will be linked in here to help you with that if you want, but you have the framework after this video. If you wrote it down, it's in there, okay? But I really wanted you to get the bigger concept in this video and understand that you need to think about more bigger ideas than just where should I apply to and what should I major in. That is too short term. That's why everyone fails at it. It's way too many people just not doing this right. You won't be one of them now. How could you? Now that you know the way you should do it, it'd be really hard to ignore this stuff and go back and just kind of like everybody else does. So that's it. Those are your next steps. Envision your future and then write down these things that you know are your drivers. Figure them out. And once you've got that, selecting a major and a career path just got way, way easier, and you're going to hit a target that feels like something that relates to you. You don't always have to hit an exact target. By the way, I need to be clear about that. But you're going to be so close that making adjustments all the time is going to be easy. You're not going to turn around and go, whoa, what I really want's behind me. That's what's happening to a lot of people. That won't happen to you if you do this. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video and got a lot out of it. If you did, please give it a like so other people can find it more easily. Also subscribe if you would, please. The reason is because more stuff's going to be coming out that supports these ideas that will help you even more. And it also makes it more findable for other people who want to get this information as well, who don't know it's out there. So it makes it more visible for everybody. That would help them. And if you really want to help somebody, if you feel like this was helpful for you, share the video. Do a share, because that's how people are going to be enriched by this and supported and helped, is to stumble into this stuff. You know, there's so much information out there. It's very hard to find the things you want if you're not actively searching for it. Nobody knows to look for this video or anything like it. So anyway, sharing it, if you think there's somebody in your life or peripheral to your life who's even finished college or about to apply, or is in college trying to nail things down, all of those people could benefit from this. So if you don't mind sharing it, that would be wonderful. Until then, I wish you an amazing life, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks so much for your attention on this. Take care.